Thank you for tuning in to episode 17 of Ralph's Stuff. Tonight's show includes galley slaves, which shows how authors have to slave away at galleys and proofing their books before it goes off to press. And a look at 1956's Cold War world. A lot different in outlook from today's world in many respects, and some very similar. We're always happy when you drop by and visit with us. The first segment involves how books are put together, and the last segment really shows you how technology has changed. It's a 1956 film showing how computers were used in the Cold War military applications. And believe me, I was 11 years old in 1956. I remember that time well. So onward and upward and on with the show. And again, thanks for coming by and enjoying Ralph's Stuff. We writers use the term galley slaves in referring to actually doing the proofs of the final book before it goes to the printer. These are the typeset pages, the way they actually look in the book. Of course, the galley slaves in the Greek and Roman times were guys who were chained to the oars on the ship and had to pull those oars, often with a good deal of encouragement from big, nasty brutes wielding whips. This is much like today's process of doing the final proofing of a book. By the time you finally get to this stage, you've written and rewritten and thought about and redone and changed the manuscript until you're absolutely sick of the book. You just want to see it get out to the printer and get published. In this case, as the publisher, now I can't tell you the name of either the book or the publishing company to avoid being commercial on public access TV here, but in this instance, I'm the big nasty brute with the whip. I'm making sure that Rick gets the book finished and out on time. This is going to be a quite nice book. In fact, we're actually printing it in China. It's going to be leather bound with gilt edges and gold embossing and a red silk ribbon. It's a collector's book. So we're really looking forward to seeing it come back and having it available in the various bookstores across the country for sale. In the meantime, I'm making Rick go through it and look for any errors here before we actually send it to the printer. I might mention that it's a quite interesting process with the advance of technology where in the way it's sent off. Years ago when I first started publishing, we'd do actual paste-ups of printouts from the typesetting machine and send those, that was called camera-ready copy, because it would be sent to the printer, and then they would actually take a photograph of it with the camera and turn out the film to burn the plates from, to put on the press to actually make the book. Now everything is done digitally, and this is the last time the book will be on paper until it's actually printed, because once it's approved and we put in these last minute changes, then I'll upload it via the internet to the printing company in China, and they'll print it and then ship the books back to us by ocean freight. It's a process that takes about 3 months or so, but it's unfortunately much cheaper than printing in the U.S. by a considerable factor, especially on a book that's leather bound and with all the other additional features that's added to make it collectible, such as the archival grade paper, etc. So Rick's going through it carefully, looking at the illustrations. Rick is famous, by the way, for several things. He won the Edgar Allan Poe Award given each year by the Mystery Writers of America. And Rick won it for Best Novel. Rick also created another book back in the early 80s that rated Asheville as the #1 place in America to live. So I harass him quite a bit. We've been friends for a long time, and accuse him of starting this flood of newcomers that we're besieged with these days in Asheville. But Rick, by the way, lived in Massachusetts when he wrote the book, and he believed his own book, and it was true, unfortunately, and moved down to Asheville. So we met soon after, both being writers, and have worked a lot together over the years. He's, as I say, he's a very good person. And there I am coming into the photo and checking things as we go also. The illustrations were done also by an Asheville artist, Phil Hawkins, who's very good at illustrations. The wonderful wonderful work and totally appropriate to the book. So we're quite pleased with Phil's work on that.
Lighting is the key thing to everything, I think. See, here's
yeah, I gotta stay on top of Rick, make sure he gets that done. But he's going through it, and he's done tremendous work. This book's actually the result of probably 10 or 15 years of work. Some of the stories he's worked on for a long time, but everything's finally come together, and we know we'll have a good product here. This is in the offices of my company, and in fact, just behind where I'm sitting is where I edit all the TV shows that go on Channel 20 here. And this is one of several buildings I have that are out here on the old former tobacco and dairy farm I grew up on. That's now a publishing company and a video production company also. So, and as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for 30 years here. So it's quite a different world than when I was a kid, and we raised tobacco and had the cows and did the other type of farming. And if you had to ask me which I like the best, don't be silly. I love what I'm doing now. The technology is so much fun, and keeps it interesting. And the world's gotten so much smaller now. We can reach out and touch printers in China, etc., and really accomplish a lot with relatively few resources. Back in the 70s and 80s, when I was first starting, there's no way I could have done projects like this without the company actually being located in some publishing center such as New York City, where you had all the different little companies around that could do the things you needed, such as typesetting and cover design and the rest. But now, thanks to the personal computer and, again, technology of all sorts, it's spread out where you can do it anywhere, even on the old tobacco farm out here in beautiful downtown Alexander. So, again, I wouldn't trade now for then. And it's been quite an interesting journey getting this far, and we have a long way to go yet. As we move from just doing print media into doing video also. Drink that coffee, Ralph. Good stuff, isn't it? Yep. Those of you that saw last week's show know I like coffee quite a bit. It's good stuff. It's heavenly fuel, nectar of the gods. It gives you the creative surge you need to get things accomplished. Yeah, we're moving right along. While I shot about 15 minutes of this process, it actually took considerably longer than that. But it would have been not only rather boring if I'd had 2 or 3 hours of galley slaving, but also it wouldn't have fit in a 28-minute show. And I've got another segment coming up I wanted to get in, so we kept this relatively short. And also I couldn't have talked about proofing a
looks like a melee. That's better. Yeah.
Proofing a book for 3 hours. Well, I could have, but it just wouldn't be quite as interesting.
Yep.
I'm sitting here now watching this clip is right at 15 minutes, and we've talked for 11 minutes straight, which is not too bad for me. I can talk. Got a nice Shure nice microphone here that does the job. So nice voiceover mic. And voiceover can make the difference between an insipid segment and one that's informative and entertaining, such as this one. Trust me, it is informative and entertaining.
Okay, that ends that.
Yeah, there you go. That's a nice illustration. They're all nice. I enjoy looking at them, especially looking at the finished product that will go to the printer.
Caption.
Because this book has taken us probably a couple years to get to this point. And Rick as author, and Phil as illustrator, and myself as publisher, and especially my wife Pat as editor, have all put in a great many hours in creating this literary extravaganza.
Well, I did. There's
And I'm giving Rick a hard time about his drawing of a lighthouse, but he actually did it rather well. It fit in the book, fit within that story. This is fiction, of course, but it's good fiction.
The corn? Yeah.
Yeah. Got to watch and make sure neither one of us misses anything. Yeah, I found something there, but typos are a bane to publishers. But even the big New York houses, who have sometimes scores of people working on a book, certainly more than we could afford to hear. But even they miss things. Being attuned to, after many years of editing and publishing, to mistakes, I can pick out a typo on a page almost immediately, and I see those even in the books from the big New York publishers. But you try to get out as much as you can and have the book as close to perfect as possible. And with enough hours and enough eyes looking at it, we can do that. So all it requires is a knowledge of English and grammar, which is a dying art form, I know, but we we remain moderately literate here, so we turn out work that's reasonably good. But I, for one, will be glad to see the last of this book. After a while, you get tired of working on it. And I've had a pretty good week. I've turned out or sent 2 major books off to the printer for after a lot of work. One to Canada, and this one, of course, going to China. So that's the way it goes out here in the wilds of Alexander, where we no longer raise books on the tobacco on the farm. We raise books, and it's a much easier crop and requires a great deal less watering and hoeing and pulling up of weeds. Although this is a good analogy for what Rick's doing here, is looking for weeds in between the rows of words, and we jerk them out. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at being galley slaves. That's what authors do. Write well, but be prepared to check it afterwards. Thanks. And moving on, let's take a look at how the world was in 1956 when I was 11 years old. This is a look at the Cold War and the mindset at that time.
Protection comes high, sky high. Today, we must be on guard in the sky when it comes to protecting our resources. The national resources that are so precious to us. The offensive weapons of tomorrow are here today. Supersonic, super destructive, seemingly unresistible. To protect the future of America, the defense techniques of tomorrow had to be discovered now. They were discovered in electronics. That is how SAGE and bursting computers into military service. Electronics for combat use means new concepts, new tools, new weapons. You are listening to the heartbeat of the SAGE computer. Every instrument in this room is constantly monitoring, testing, pulse-taking, controlling. For this is the programming and operations center for the SAGE computer which surrounds it. To it come continuous streams of data, which it continuously absorbs and stores on magnetic drums, tapes, and cores. Data from radar units, Texas towers, picket ships, early warning aircraft, ground observer corps, weather bureaus. To say nothing of up-to-the-minute data on all regularly scheduled commercial air flights. It also packs away information as to the number, location, and characteristics of all military craft, all anti-aircraft guns, all defensive missiles in the area. And this computer is on the job around the clock with 24-hour-a-day reliability. It is really two computers, but only one is operating the system. The other, with the same vast memory, performs as a slave, checking calculations and results, ready to take over in a matter of seconds should the master computer falter. All this is housed in one of the new headquarters of computer defense, one of the direction centers of what the Air Force calls SAGE. Beyond a fantastic capacity for calculation and memory, SAGE possesses the newest and most revolutionary advance in data processing, the display scope, a computer-generated visual display, on call as needed. Until SAGE, the miracle of the computer was its ability to calculate in split seconds and then provide printed information. But SAGE needed more than this. For the lightning shifts of air battle, the Air Force requested from IBM a computer capable of translating volumes of changing data into a continuous flow of interpretations which could be understood at a glance. Air defense required split-second presentation as well as split-second calculation. Given this objective, IBM applied the latest extension of data processing, the display scope, a giant picture tube on which computer results are instantaneously and continuously translated into graphic images. In SAGE, airmen have the battle visualized for them on the computer-generated display. 2 floors above the great computers are the batteries of display scopes. Although they look like the offspring of a marriage between a television tube and a radar screen, display scopes do not show physical images transmitted from elsewhere. They display the results of the computer's findings. SAGE, with its display scope, also has one feature possessed by neither a television or radar screen. It has memory. In case of enemy air attack, not only can a clear picture of the changing air situation be displayed on the scope, but if the airman wishes to see how things got that way, the scope can recall any previous phase of the situation from the computer's memory. By analyzing the past, SAGE can project into the future. The computer can furnish information on the countermeasures available so that the officer in charge can make his choice as to when and where to fight. Once he has selected a plan of counterattack, the computer guides interceptors and missiles to the enemy. After encounter, the computer guides the interceptors back to their bases. Aladdin's lamp couldn't do more. What is the most precious commodity that electronics defense wins us? Time. Long before the bomber reaches our defense perimeter, the computer's memory will identify it as friendly. But if a flight of planes were identified as hostile, then, in a matter of minutes, time is everything. This is electronic defense in depth. And what better reason for an effective air defense? But is this protection enough? Here is protection too. The protection which comes with the possession of weapons of retaliation. Just as our defensive powers had been advancing, so have our instruments of attack. The demands of plane warfare require the fantastic ability of modern computers. The question was, how could the electronic computer be made airborne? Problems of consequence when designing a computer for ground installation became overwhelming when it was proposed to redesign them to fit into jet bombers. First, the problem of space and weight. The interior of a modern bomber is cramped for space as is. How can a bulky computer be fitted into it? For every extra pound of dead weight carried, a bomber must add many more gallons of fuel. Second, the problem of reliability. Could a computer be designed to withstand all the stresses of flight? Weather, climate, turbulence. Third, maintenance. Could a computer be designed for easy ground and air maintenance? These and other problems were all finally solved by unique design and by employing the basic principle of modular construction. The same multiple arrangement principle which was applied in the design of this doll furniture enabled the Air Force to procure an airborne computer. By designing an electronic assembly packaged in self-contained units which are then joined, a computer of flexible construction was achieved. It can either be installed in a compact unit or parts can be distributed according to the space available. Self-contained units make it easier to achieve durable construction and easier to test each unit for reliability. Under all conditions, an airborne computer is likely to be exposed to, and some highly unlikely ones. High altitudes up to 120,000 feet. Low temperatures down to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Below zero. High temperatures up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Sunlight. And rain tests. Life tests of mechanical and electronic units. Vibration tests. In this test, the question is not, will the computer work under this condition, but how long will it work? Once the continued capabilities of the airborne computer were established, there was only one other major obstacle: field maintenance. To solve this problem, IBM drew on its commercial experience. It converted its control panels to military use. In order to test a unit of an airborne computer, the technician merely selects the proper control panel. He then plugs the units into the test equipment, and the signal lights tell him whether the units are working or not. This puts testing computer units in the same class as testing light bulbs. Today, the airborne computer is no longer a theory, nor an experiment. It's a fact, tested, functioning, practical, and restricted. It has gone into production under the label BRAIN, bombing, radar, navigation equipment. A new plant is being rushed to completion in Owego, New York, to boost its output. Here is a scale model of a B-52 showing the relative locations of BRAIN equipment. The rest of the system, computers, periscope, and screen, are designed to take up a minimum of space and to give a maximum of use. Computers have taken wing.
Hey, Phil, I got some crosshair jitter in both azimuth and elevation. Would you pull the AR-5 and replace it with a spare?
Sure, Dan. Give me a minute. It'll only be a second more. Yeah, I think I got it now. Okay, the amplifier's replaced. How's the jitter?
Settle down. Yeah, it's okay now. Thanks, Phil.
And as long as we're on guard, as long as we're ready to look ahead and move ahead, the future of America is secure.
Go to ralphwroberts.com to see this show again.